Muito bom dia, meus amigos. 8 de janeiro de 2024, pelo horário de Brasília, 3 horas 25 minutos. Estamos iniciando mais uma transmissão em nosso canal UPTV e hoje com um evento histórico, né? Primeiro voo aí do Vulcan Centaur da United Launch Alliance no complexo de lançamento número 41. Cabo Canaveral, Flórida, nos Estados Unidos. E hoje aí temos a missão em conjunto com a NASA, aí levando então o Astrobotic Peregrine Mission One, né? Onde então ele vai fazer o pouso lá na Lua, né? Então aí o Vulcan Centaur da United Launch Alliance, né? Fazendo seu voo de certificação número 1, né? Precisando de mais ainda um voo, né? Para fazer então sua certificação completa aí junto com a agência, junto com o pessoal aí das Forças Armadas lá dos Estados Unidos, né? Eles exigem aí 2 voos aí para a certificação aí de fato então comercial aí da United Launch Alliance para o Vulcan Centaur. Este voo era para ter sido realizado no dia 24 de dezembro do ano passado, mas foi adiado então para hoje, 8 de janeiro de 2024. O horário de lançamento está previsto para acontecer às 4 horas e 18 minutos, aqui no horário de Brasília, 7 horas e 18 minutos no horário internacional. Estamos então aí com 2 cargas a bordo do Vulcan, né, que um deles é o Peregrino, né, esse que vocês estão vendo na tela, e a outra então é uma carga aí da United Launch Alliance, né, com outras empresas aí, né, que vai então em direção ao Deep Space, né, ao espaço profundo, né, igual como foi aí então a a Voyager. O tempo total de duração desta missão será então de 4 horas 24 minutos e 44 segundos, né? E o primeiro então a ser liberado é o Peregrino, aí no tempo então de 50 minutos e 26 segundos. Ainda teremos aí dois pontos também de queima do motor aí do, do Vulcan, tá? Então é isso, né? Então vamos aguardar então aí o contato lá com o Cabo Canaveral na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos, para esse grande momento histórico. Estamos aí vendo aí em 2024, já iniciando aí com tudo, né? Esse primeiro grande momento histórico aqui no nosso canal aí em 2024. Ontem tivemos então aí o lançamento da missão 132, aí com mais 23 satélites Starlink do grupo 636, né, que foi também do Cabo Canaveral, no complexo de lançamento número 40, né, pela SpaceX. O que seria também antes desta missão do Vulcan, né, lá na Califórnia, foi transferida para o dia 10, né? Então a missão Starlink do grupo 710 foi transferida para o dia 10 de janeiro. E nós já estamos com 970 inscrições aqui no nosso canal no YouTube. Quero agradecer então aí a todos pelas inscrições, né? Estamos aí chegando então próximos à marca de 1000 inscritos no canal, né? Muito obrigado aí então a todos aí que estão se inscrevendo e ajudando aí a contribuir com o crescimento do nosso canal. Estamos aguardando só o contato lá com o Cabo Canaveral. Parece que já estamos. Sim, já estamos. Já estamos ao vivo, então, com a nossa transmissão. Abertura, então, oficial aí da nossa transmissão com a NASA. 3 horas e 30 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. Estamos então ao vivo aí com a NASA e United Launch Alliance para a transmissão então da missão Vulcan CERT-1. Aí com a missão CLPS aí, Commercial Lunar Payload Services. Mas aqui temos duas transmissões aqui em conjunto, só um instantinho.
It will launch a spacecraft that will land on the moon, making it one of the first lunar landings for the US since the final Apollo mission over 50 years ago.
Estamos aí com imagens
Good morning and thank you for joining us on the Space
aí diretamente está no complexo de lançamento aí da Canaveral, complexo número 41. Então esse é o primeiro voo comercial aí da Lunar Service Peregrine.
These deliveries will mean more exploration of the moon than ever before and will help us prepare for the first woman and first person of color to land on the lunar surface under NASA's Artemis program. For today's launch,
E aí estamos aí com imagens do Peregrine, do Vulcan Centaur, aí o veículo então da United Launch Alliance. É o nosso veículo então de estreia de hoje. Então lembrando que aí então o horário do lançamento está previsto então para as 4 horas e 18 minutos pelo horário de Brasília, 2 horas e 18 minutos no horário do Eastern Time, no horário do leste.
Helping me to share today's first are commentators from both our commercial partners. We have Astrobotic's Olivia Chapla, but first, let's start with ULA's Amanda Sterling with a check of how the rocket is doing.
Thanks, Megan, and good morning.
I'm estamos aí no centro de controle da United Launch Alliance.
At United Launch Alliance. I'm joining you from the Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center at Cape Canaveral. This is an exciting place to be as the ULA team counts down to liftoff of Vulcan's inaugural flight.
Primeiro voo aí do Vulcan
Centaur. The Vulcan booster and Centaur upper stage are fueled, while the launch team continues final preps.
Então,
as Megan mentioned, the launch remains in a planned hold.
Da NASA.
The ULA team is currently not working any issues, and we're on track for an on-time launch at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern.
45 minutos
Coming up,
para o
Space
lançamento.
Launch Delta 45 will provide a final weather briefing in about 15 minutes. At the moment, our weather looks good, with just a 15% probability of violation through the 45-minute launch window we have available this morning.
Estamos então aí com um clima bom, né? Estamos com 25% de chance de não ter lançamento. Estamos aí com probabilidades boas aí, então, para o primeiro voo do Vulcan. Então aí temos aí destaque então do Peregrino aí para vocês. É o Peregrino então que vai fazer então o pouso lá na Lua. Veículo então aí da NASA.
And finally, it has over 1 mile of cables and wiring. Our broadcast on NASA TV today will cover Peregrine separation around 3:09 a.m. Eastern Time, followed by acquisition of signals shortly after. For more on the company that built Peregrine, here's Astrobotic's Olivia Chapla.
Lembrando que esta missão, então, com a NASA, né, junto com a empresa Astrobotic.
Representing Astrobotic as the Director of Marketing and Communications. We're a small but mighty team of about 260 people. Together, our real goal is to make space accessible to the world. And today, we are
Temos aí a sala de controle da Astrobotic, que vai conduzir então aí o Peregrine até a Lua.
Over the past 3 years, I've watched the Astrobotic team build this Peregrine
E aí
spacecraft
temos aí
launching today.
imagens
I've
aí
been
do
there alongside them
Peregrino.
during the long days, late nights, and for the ridiculously early mornings when we shipped Peregrine to Cape Canaveral in preparation for launch today. I am personally so excited to be here because this mission really marks the beginning of a historic time.
Nós estamos então com a nossa transmissão aí ao vivo para todo mundo.
and only a
Vindo
handful
então
of
esta
countries
missão
have ever
histórica,
successfully landed on the
aí já
lunar
com o
surface.
Vulcan Centaur,
Astrobotic's aim is to not
fazendo
only
então seu
return the
voo de
American flag to the moon
certificação
again with
número
Peregrine,
1,
but also to start
já com a missão
regular
então com a
commercial
NASA,
lunar
com
deliveries to the moon's
Astrobotic,
surface. Now,
Peregrine.
let's hear a little more from our founder and CEO, John Thornton.
Astrobotic.
Lembrando que o horário de lançamento, então, está previsto para acontecer às 4h18 da manhã, pelo horário de Brasília, lá no complexo então, de lançamento número 41, no Cabo Canaveral, na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos. Lembrando que o tempo total desta missão será, então, de 4h24. Mas a soltura, então, a liberação do Peregrino será no tempo de 50 minutos e 26 segundos. No canto inferior esquerdo aí na sua tela, podemos ver imagens ao vivo, então, lá do Vulcan, já fazendo, então, aí seu abastecimento. Abastecimento estão sendo realizado aí com tranquilidade.
NASA deliveries. This model will hopefully mean frequent, rapid, and affordable access to the moon.
Você está então assistindo o nosso canal UPTV. Estamos então aí transmitindo para vocês o primeiro voo de certificação aí do Vulcan Centaur da United Launch Alliance, com missão em direção à Lua, levando então aí o módulo de pouso Astrobotic Peregrine. Tem mais uma outra carga que vai em direção ao Deep Space, ao espaço profundo. Este é o primeiro voo então do Vulcan, novo veículo então aí da United Launch Alliance, que será então realizado lá no complexo de lançamento número 41, Cabo Canaveral, Flórida, nos Estados Unidos.
Savings for NASA, as we've said, but this approach has risks. So to explain, I have Joel Kearns here. He's the Deputy Associate Administrator for Exploration in NASA's Science Mission Directorate. Good morning, Joel.
Hi, good morning, Megan.
So talk to me about why we want commercial companies sending our science experiments. Why don't we send them ourselves?
Well, you know, NASA is really good at sending robotic science probes throughout the solar system, but it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of time, and for our big push to do science
3 horas e
technology
40
on the
minutos
moon
pelo
as part
horário
of
de
Artemis,
Brasília.
we wanted to take a new
Lembrando que o
approach. We
lançamento
wanted to
então está
tap into the
previsto
new ideas,
aí
the
para acontecer às
entrepreneurial spirit, and all the engineering
4h18,
innovation that these small
daqui a
companies and
38
startup
minutos.
companies bring in the United States. We think they can help make the overall moon effort much better.
But isn't it riskier for us to depend on others versus us doing it ourselves?
There is a different level of risk that we all had to understand and agree to when we started down this. Like I said, we understand how to do robotic science missions at NASA, but we do know that these companies have a lot of good, interesting ideas. By partnering with several different companies for different lunar landing missions, we get to see all their individual strengths, their different technical approaches, but at the same time, we don't get the level of information and
hoje o Vulcan então aí com configuração com 2 boosters auxiliares.
But why is it so important for us to send science before we send astronauts? We didn't do that
Que o
before
núcleo central dele então tem 2 estágios, 2 motores, e temos estágio 2.
Not just about the moon itself, but how the moon is almost a time machine to look back to see what happened at Earth in the earliest ages of Earth. So, for example, we can do studies at the moon to try to determine when did all those last big meteor impacts take place.
Lembrando que para ainda esta semana, né, teremos missão lá no Japão, o veículo H2A, no dia 11.
And we might be interested in using water ice that's at the south pole of the moon, we expect, for our astronauts in the future. But understanding how that ice got there, how that water got there in the first place, will help us understand how do we have water at Earth that we get to use today.
E logo mais também na Twitch,
anything in particular
lá
that
no
you
período da
are
manhã,
most excited about discovering on the moon?
teremos então a nossa apresentação do programa Resumo das Missões, onde então vamos reapresentar aí então, este programa de hoje aí do Vulcan CERT-1. Então, para quem perdeu esta transmissão aqui na madrugada.
Joel, thank you so much. I know we have ambitious goals here at NASA. I can't wait to see what we do.
Oh, thank you. This is an exciting day.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, so let's head back over to ULA's Amanda Sterling for another update on the Vulcan rocket.
Então vamos ver aí as atualizações do
Vulcan.
Vulcan.
As planned as we look forward to the launch of ULA's first Vulcan rocket. We're still holding at T-minus 7 minutes as part of our planned 60-minute hold, and the team is not working any issues at this time. The Vulcan booster is fueled to flight level with super chilled liquid oxygen and liquid methane. Soon, Centaur topping to flight levels will begin,
Então, o abastecimento do Vulcan Centaur aí segue aí ocorrendo bem, sem nenhum problema. Essa que eles vão precisar aí naquele tempo de hold. Aí, quando tivermos então na marca de menos de 7 minutos para o lançamento.
Through the 45-minute launch window we have available this morning. The excitement is building here in ULA's Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center as we get closer to T0. Back to you, Megan.
All right, we're about 35 minutes away to the opening of today's launch window inside Vulcan's payload fairing
Menos de 35 minutos então para a abertura da janela de lançamento para o Vulcan.
Where folks there are laser focused on Peregrine right now, right, Olivia?
That is definitely right, Megan. I'm checking in on our Peregrine Lunar Lander with our mission control team right now. You can see them on screen. A reminder that our spacecraft is currently sitting in the top of ULA Vulcan's fairing. Our flight director is informing me that Peregrine is looking nominal with temperatures currently at an expected 70 degrees Fahrenheit. We also monitor the environmental pressures around the spacecraft, and we're sitting at a good 14.7 psi. Things are looking good for launch. The spacecraft is currently powered off, but will automatically power on once it separates from Vulcan's payload fairing. And here you can just see the faces of some of the engineers who have worked many hours on Peregrine to get it to the launch pad today. Sitting in the middle left row is Flight Director Anders Solorzano. He is the acting flight director for this launch. And nearby is Alex Van Hoven. He is currently providing us updates on the spacecraft status. And Alex just informed me that the spacecraft is currently looking nominal. Temperatures and pressures are still as expected. As we continue to await launch, let's send it back to Megan at the host desk.
Thank you, Olivia. Again, Peregrine is flying with 20 payloads today. 5 of those are NASA's, and throughout the show, we will tell you about each one, starting first with the Linear Energy Transfer Spectrometer, or LETS, from NASA's Johnson Space Center.
I'm Nick Stoffel. I'm a physicist and professional engineer. Science
E aí vamos ver algumas cargas, né, que estão aí a bordo, os instrumentos que estão aí a bordo, então, do Peregrino, né. Um deles, então, é este espectrômetro. Que vai estudar Aí tem algumas partes então de energia magnéticas aí da Lua também. Também das partes de radiação, né, que vem aí do Sol, né? Então vai analisar aí toda a preparação aí para as futuras missões aí tripuladas, né, para a Lua.
Technology maturation. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
So tell me how STMD, that's the shortened version of the directorate there, tell me how it invests in small business like Astrobotic.
Of course. So the Space Technology Mission Directorate, our mantra is technology drives exploration. So if you're really going to create new disruptive technologies that change the world, you really have to work with a diverse group of individuals. And that means our small businesses, large businesses, international partners, other government agencies. Astrobotic is a shining example of that. STMD has been working with them
32
for
minutos
well over a
para o
decade.
lançamento do
We've
Vulcan.
awarded
32
over
minutos.
40 Small Business Innovation Research Awards and our tipping points to develop new technologies for the mission.
So is that essentially like seed money? Is that how to
Yes,
consider it?
we're partners, right? We're partners in this. We say at Artemis we're going together, and we mean it. We're invested hand in hand in this.
And how have those financial awards, how have those helped Astrobotic?
So, for example, not only do we have science and different payloads aboard the mission, but actually parts of the lander itself, like our navigation Doppler LiDAR that helps with the guidance, navigation, and control, terrain relative navigation that helps to make sure that they can land in safe spots. You know, the moon can be very treacherous. And also the axial thruster engines on the lander itself are brand new engines that have never been flown before that we're testing on the moon together.
How does it feel to see technologies that your directorate developed, you know, helping us get back to the moon?
There are not words. I really get goosebumps. And, you know, the funny thing is, if you'd asked me as it was a child, of course, it's the amazing engineering and science feats that we see happening. But as a child that was raised in a family of a small business, doing this together with small businesses, this being our NASA and going together to the moon, is really just incredible.
Yeah, just what do you think about that? Again, that we're bringing in as many as we can with us back to the
You know what
moon.
I think? I think that means success.
Yeah.
I think it's going to require all of us and our mutual strengths to make it happen.
Thank you, Nikki. I really appreciate you being here, and I hope you see a beautiful launch today.
Me too. Let's go.
All right, we're just about under 31 minutes to the opening of today's 45-minute launch window. After Peregrine 1 today, Astrobotic will deliver another payload for us, and that's our Viper rover later this year.
Menos de 30 minutos para o lançamento então aí do Vulcan. Pelo horário de Brasília agora são 3 horas e 48 minutos. Estamos então acompanhando o voo de certificação número 1 aí do Vulcan Centaur, aí do United Launch Alliance. Estamos aí levando um módulo de pouso então lunar aí da NASA, né, aí com Astrobotic, Peregrine, e também aí e a segunda carga útil também aí é a missão Voyager, né, no espaço aí profundo aí com Memorial Celestis aí Spaceflights, conhecidas como a Enterprise Flight, né, como eu falei, então aí são conteúdos, né, aí memorial aí da Voyager, né? E vai então em direção ao espaço profundo. É similar, a missão é similar aí como foi a Voyager.
Is Artemis 2.
Lembrando que para este ano também de 2024, né, no dia 30 de novembro, né, que está previsto então aí para o lançamento do CLS, né, para a missão então tripulada que vai então circundar a órbita da Lua.
8.6 million pounds of thrust.
Então o CLS aí
We continue to
fazendo
march
a sua
towards
preparação
today's
para o
45-minute
voo
launch window that opens
no
at
dia 30
2:18 and
de
38
novembro.
seconds Eastern Time.
3 horas
The
e
ULA
50
team
minutos
remains in
pelo
a
horário
command hold
de
and right
Brasília,
now
faltando
working no issues.
28
As
minutos
for
para
the
o
Peregrine
lançamento. Quem está
spacecraft,
chegando
let's
agora,
get another
estamos aí
check of it
acompanhando
from Olivia with
diretamente
Astrobotic.
do complexo de lançamento
Thank you,
número
Megan. As you may
41,
recall, we are
no
currently
Cabo
only
Canaveral, Flórida,
monitoring
nos
the
Estados
spacecraft's
Unidos.
temperature and pressure
O
while it sits
lançamento então
inside the
da
Vulcan rocket's payload
primeiro
fairing.
voo,
And we're
aí o voo
checking
de
in with my
estreia
team
do
members in
Vulcan
Mission
Centaur
Control, and
da
Alex Van
United
Hoven, one of
Launch
our flight
Alliance,
directors,
né,
in
já
the
com
very
missão então
back
para
row,
a
he is
Lua,
providing us
né,
updates
com a
directly. Our
Astrobotic,
mission team confirmed the
levando então
spacecraft's
aí
levels
o
are
módulo de
nominal, and we
pouso
continue to be
Peregrine.
ready for launch. And I'd like to take this time to say a well-deserved shout-out to the
Né, então aí
entire
vai fazer
Astrobotic
todos
team
os
in
testes, né,
Pennsylvania,
de
California,
preparação
and
também
even a few
para
remote workers.
futuros
I'm
voos
sure you're all
tripulados
watching right now,
para a
and we thank you for
superfície
your continued
da
commitment
Lua.
to this mission and to lunar exploration. We really couldn't have done it without you. Now, as we sit tight for launch, we'll continue to monitor Peregrine. For now, back to Megan at the host desk.
A few minutes ago, I told you
O
about
horário de
NASA's
lançamento então
LEX
previsto
payload
para
flying on
acontecer às
Peregrine today.
4 horas
Now we'll learn about NIRVIS, or the
e
Near
18
Infrared
minutos.
Volatile Spectrometer System from NASA's Ames Research Center.
Então temos aí o espectrômetro, né, que está aí já a bordo lá do Peregrino, né, onde vai fazer aí fazer estudos aí na superfície da Lua. Vai fazer então toda a parte aí de estudos de espectrometria e aí também da parte da superfície aí da Lua, né, como estudos de altas e baixas temperaturas aí das rochas, de ventos solares, de impactos.
To tell you
Né,
about
são aí
flying on
alguns
NASA's first commercial
preparativos
lunar
então
payload
aí
services
para
launch. But now we want to
as
turn the
futuras
broadcast
missões
over to
tripuladas
ULA.
para a
Sterling will
superfície
walk us
lunar.
through the rest of the Vulcan rocket's inaugural flight through launch and ascent, and then Olivia and I will be back around 15 minutes after liftoff to continue monitoring Peregrine. ULA
Menos de
will join us in
25
just a few
minutos.
seconds.
25 minutos então para o lançamento do Vulcan. Parece que vamos ter aí o range, né, do go no go para o lançamento.
Good morning. I'm Amanda Sterling, a program management leader and your host for ULA's live coverage of the inaugural Vulcan launch. I'm joining you from ULA's Advanced Spaceflight
E agora
Operations
estamos
Center
aí
at Cape
com
Canaveral Space Force
a
Station in
Vulcan,
Florida.
com a United Launch Alliance.
Thanks for staying up late or
Agora
getting up
nossa
early with us
transmissão
for
agora em
today's
conjunto aí com a
exciting
United
first
Launch
launch,
Alliance.
Vulcan's
Então
Certification
para
Flight
toda a
1,
cobertura
or
aí do
CERT-1.
lançamento do Vulcan.
This is the first of 2 planned test flights to support full certification of the Vulcan rocket for
Lembrando que
U.S.
este é o
government
primeiro
missions.
lançamento de 2 para
On board the
certificação
Vulcan
então
rocket
aí
today
dos
is
futuros
Astrobotic's
lançamentos
Peregrine Commercial Lunar
comerciais
Lander
aí para
on a
o
mission to
Vulcan.
intercept the moon. And
É
the
por isso que esta
Celestis
missão se
Memorial
chama
Spaceflight
Vulcan
Payload
CERT-1.
Enterprise, flying to deep
É
space
porque
with
este
the
é o primeiro
Centaur upper,
voo de
upper stage.
certificação e aí depois teremos mais
Liftoff is
novo
scheduled
voo
for
de
2:18:38
certificação.
a.m. Eastern, and we have a 45-minute launch window this morning. In addition to watching our webcast, you can also follow the live mission progress at ulalaunch.com.
Estamos então no
About
complexo
30
de
minutes
lançamento
ago, the
número
count entered
41,
a 60-minute planned
no
hold.
Cabo Canaveral,
We
Flórida,
have 2
nos
planned
Estados
holds in our launch
Unidos.
count, which give our team additional time to resolve any issues prior to
Lembrando
entering
que
the turbine
durante a
count.
contagem regressiva aí teremos
At this time,
um
the team
tempo
is
de
not
hold,
working any issues, and
na
we're
marca
proceeding
então de
towards an
7
on-time
minutos
liftoff.
para o lançamento.
We're excited to partner with NASA on today's live broadcast. Together, we'll be continuing our coverage through end of mission.
Até o momento aí,
Built over
a
more
parte
than 120 years of
climática,
combined Atlas and Delta launch
estamos aí com
experience,
25% de
ULA's
chance
Vulcan
de
rocket
não ter
introduces a
lançamento.
balance of new technologies and innovative features to ensure a reliable and accessible space launch service. Let's hear
Então, aí,
more
pelo
about this
horário de
incredible
Brasília,
launch
são
vehicle
3 horas
from
e
ULA Business
55
Development
minutos.
Director
E o tempo,
Tom
então, de duração
Burkholder
total
and Vulcan
desta
Chief
missão
Engineer RJ
será de
Sansom.
4 horas e 24 minutos.
So RJ, can you discuss a little bit of the when you began the design of Vulcan and what that meant?
Yeah, when we started the design of Vulcan, we were looking at our national security space customer and designing a launch system that would meet their needs. And we focused on being able to provide lift for the most difficult, stressing mission, which is a high-energy mission. We designed a launch system that's flexible. We have the ability to add solid
Estamos aí,
rocket
então, nos
boosters,
momentos
take them
finais
off,
aí de expectativa,
tailor the performance
então,
that we
para
need for
o
that
lançamento
particular
do
customer's
Vulcan.
mission. We have a extremely
Lembrando que
capable
esta
upper
missão
stage
aí
in
do
the
Vulcan,
Center
né,
5 that
primeira
provides performance
tentativa
that
então de
exceeds
lançamento
all the
era para ter sido
capabilities that our
realizado
customer needs. And in the
no
end, we
dia
get a launch system that
24
exceeds
de
all of
dezembro
our
do
national
ano
security
passado,
customers'
aí véspera
requirements
de
and
Natal,
enables us to
mas foi
provide
adiado
performance
então
for
para
commercial
hoje,
customers or other customers
8 de
that
novembro de
will meet their needs
2024.
now and into the future.
That's great. And as we look at how the customer received that vision, we definitely saw that they were aligned with it
Desculpem,
as they contributed to the
Lembrando
development.
que aqui também para o nosso
from
canal
the
estamos
Space
aí com
Force to NASA and commercial
970
customers.
inscritos,
And so I was wondering if
né,
you
aqui
could
no
also
canal.
talk
Quero
on the
agradecer a
partnerships
todos
that you had in the
pelas suas
development.
inscrições.
Yeah, from the beginning, we partnered with
De
industry
pouquinho em
partners
pouquinho a gente vai
who
crescendo mais.
have expertise and capabilities to help us bring new innovative technologies, as well as to leverage existing technologies. So we brought a very capable yet new design forward that was a low-risk option. We partnered with Northrop Grumman on development of new solid rocket boosters. The first variant of that flew on Atlas.
Menos de
with a
21
tailored
minutos
version that
para o
was
lançamento,
tailored
então
to
aí
provide
do nosso
specific
Vulcan.
performance for Vulcan. We partnered with Rocketdyne on development of RL-10 and implementation on that, again, first flight on Atlas, and then
Então lembrando que o
flying again on
Vulcan,
Vulcan.
hoje, né, na
Partnered with
configuração do
Beyond
Vulcan
Gravity
de
on
hoje,
composite
teremos aí
structures.
2
And
boosters
then we partnered with Blue Origin to develop
auxiliares,
a new main stage propulsion system, the BE-4,
núcleo
the first
central aí com
oxygen
2
stage combustion
motores
engine developed
e
domestically.
2
So,
estágios.
industry partners brought a lot to the table for us.
That's great. And then as we look at what this has meant to the market, it's been fantastic. And I was wondering if you could share with me how the Vulcan design has evolved as we've
O
started to look
Vulcan
at the
então
commercial
mede
market with Project Kuiper.
Vulcan de
We
hoje, né,
had a
então mede
really
aí
capable launch
aproximadamente
system to
de
start with,
altura
and as we looked at the
quase
commercial market and
64
focused on
metros.
LEO, we decided that a small change to our design, a small change to the upper stage, would give us increased performance and ability to lift more
20 minutos,
spacecraft
hein?
to the low
20
Earth orbit,
minutos
and
aí
really
então
position
para
us well
o
for
lançamento.
supporting the Kuiper contract and our Kuiper customer.
Yeah. And the result of that was the largest launch contract.
Lembrando também que a
ever.
United
And so
Atlantic
with
Alliance, né,
that, Vulcan
fez
has positioned
o último
ULA,
lançamento aí
to help
para
support
a
national
Amazon,
security,
né, iniciando aí o
NASA,
projeto
and our commercial market.
QP,
So we're very
né,
excited
que nós
about the future.
transmitimos aqui
Go
também.
Vulcan, go Centaur, go CERT-1.
I'm now joined by ULA President and CEO Tori Bruno. Tori, thank you so much for joining us on this monumental day.
Então esse é o Tori
I've been a
Bruno,
part of the
é
Vulcan
o
team for a
CEO
number of years,
da
so
United
I know how
Atlantic
focused
Alliance.
the whole ULA team has been. Can you talk a little bit about the teams that came together to design, build, and now launch this rocket?
I am so proud of our people, and I think we had exactly the best possible team. We've got folks that designed rockets before, like Atlas and Delta, but we also have the majority of our team, people like yourself, that are earlier in their career, know the new tools, aren't sort of handcuffed by some of the conventions that we used before, and can do really creative and innovative work while also not making the mistakes of the past.
Absolutely, and you know, Vulcan is such a unique rocket. What are you most proud of about this vehicle?
I'm really proud of the fact that we still service the high energy marketplace a unique thing
Agora,
that is
pelo horário de
really
Brasília,
important to
4
our mission
horas.
security that
Estamos aí
no
então
one else has
transmitindo
an
o primeiro voo de
architecture that will do
certificação do
that,
Vulcan
while at the
Central
same
da
time
United
breaking all the
Flight
rules and having the dial rocket
Alliance, diretamente do
architecture that
complexo
gives it
de
the
lançamento número
flexibility to reach
41,
down
Cabo
into that
Canaveral,
LEO
Flórida,
marketplace
nos
and be
Estados
very
Unidos,
competitive there as well.
onde também teremos
Absolutely.
2 cargas
So
úteis a
we're getting
bordo.
pretty close to liftoff
do
now.
Vulcan.
How do you expect to feel watching
Uma
the
delas
Vulcan
é o
rocket lift off for the
Astrobotic
first time?
Peregrine,
Tremendous
né,
excitement,
que é o modo de
anticipation.
pouso
I got to tell you, I've done
lunar.
over 400
Aí
launches.
junto
They're
com a
all the
NASA.
same. I always get
E outra
butterflies.
carga
This one's
útil também
really
aí,
special because of
em
what it means
homenagem
to
aí a
our country,
Voyager,
to
né,
our
que vai
customers, and to the
para o
team that
espaço
has
profundo,
worked so hard,
né, levando
including
alguns
you, Agent Sterling.
Well, thank you so
similar
much for
como
joining
foi a
us. We'll
Voyager,
let
né?
you get back to it so you can make sure you watch liftoff and let's go.
Levando
Go
alguns.
Vulcan. Thank you.
Então o abastecimento aí do Vulcan segue aí ocorrendo tranquilamente. Faltando então aí menos de 17 minutos para o lançamento. Lembrando que o horário de lançamento está previsto para acontecer às 4h18 no horário de Brasília. Só que antes disso, né, vamos ter aí um pequeno tempo de hold.
On board the Vulcan rocket
7
today is
minutos.
Astrobotic's Peregrine Commercial Lunar Lander. Peregrine is the first spacecraft in NASA's new CLPS initiative to have American companies send its science experiments to the moon.
Astrobotic is a full-service lunar company. It starts with our terrestrial
One has been disabled. Roger.
Also riding atop today's Vulcan rocket is the Celestis Memorial Spaceflight Payload. Let's learn more about this mission.
Flight control, LC. Go ahead, this flight control. Reduce Vulcan hydraulics to standby. Roger.
Today's rocket includes the American flag across the inner stage, as well as logos on the payload fairing representing ULA, Vulcan, and Astrobotic. While this is the inaugural launch of the Vulcan rocket, the CERT-1 flight test marks ULA's 159th launch. Let's learn more about this innovative new rocket.
Design.
Então aí estamos aí com menos de 14 minutos para o lançamento, momento de expectativa. Então aí para o voo de certificação número 1 aí do nosso Vulcan Centaur da United Launch Alliance, diretamente está no complexo de lançamento número 41 no Cabo Canaveral, na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos. Pelo horário de Brasília, agora são 4 horas e 5 minutos. Lembrando que o tempo total de duração desta missão será de 4 horas e 24 minutos. E a duração então do deploy, tempo de soltura do Peregrino, então será 50 minutos após o lançamento. E a configuração de hoje do Peregrino, do Vulcan. Nós temos então aí 2 boosters auxiliares, né, no núcleo central com 2 motores e um veículo então de 2 estágios. Aí vídeo então de integração aí do Vulcan. Então aí primeiro foi instalado então o núcleo central e depois então aí os auxiliares. E aí o interestágio e o estágio 2. Depois temos aí o encapsulamento das cargas e a integração ao veículo. Depois tivemos aí a saída do veículo até a plataforma de lançamento. E então chegamos aí ao momento de hoje, 8 de janeiro de 2024, para o lançamento.
Maintain operational silence in the LCC.
Go, LOX 2.
Center LO2 at flight level.
Roger. Terminal count briefing. If a condition exceeds a launch constraint, anytime after the terminal count status check, the observer shall announce hold, hold, hold on channel 1, identify their station, and briefly state the reason for the hold. RLM, verify redline monitor and event table on the correct configuration for terminal count.
Verified.
As we approach the terminal count pole, let's check in on today's weather. The Space Launch Delta 45 forecast for this morning's launch is looking good. The probability of violating launch constraints is 15%. Ground winds are 15 to 20 knots out of the north, and the temperature is 57 degrees Fahrenheit. The primary concern for launch is the thick cloud layers rule.
L minus 11 minutes.
Estamos indo bem aí para o Vulcan Centaur.
We remain in the planned 60-minute hold as we continue towards liftoff. In a few moments, launch conductor Dylan Rice will poll the launch team for the final go to pick up the count. 29 engineers and managers are polled for system status and readiness to proceed. This is the final status check for all Vulcan vehicle systems, ground systems, spacecraft, and the U.S. Space Force Eastern Range. The vehicle system readiness poll includes electrical systems, hydraulics, pneumatics, propulsion systems,
Pelo horário de
flight
Brasília,
control,
agora
and
4
propellants.
horas e 9
Let's listen in
minutos.
as Dylan Rice performs the final polling.
Prior to the status check.
Estamos aí agora no range go no go.
Status check to proceed with terminal count, Vulcan systems, propulsion. Go. Hydraulics. Go. Pneumatics.
Go.
LNG. Go. LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Gas.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground. Go. Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
GC cubed.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
COM.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Clear to proceed.
Launch director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC, verify T0 is set for 071838 Zulu.
Verified.
E estamos aí tudo pronto para o lançamento.
Polling is
Tudo
complete and
verde.
the team is go for launch.
Tudo verde, então,
From
para o
T-minus 7
lançamento.
minutes until liftoff, you'll hear Dylan Rice and the team performing the final steps in the countdown
Estamos
procedure.
só aguardando, então, a marca de
Several
7
critical
minutos ali
activities
para o
occur in the
lançamento.
final minutes before launch, including verifying fuel tank levels and pressures in the booster and Centaur,
Vulcan
and
Centaur
arming the flight
is
termination
all
system.
green for the launch
At
today.
T-minus 1 minute, the range operations commander confirms the range is in a green condition for launch. At T-minus
Só
25
estamos aí
seconds,
aguardando,
you'll
então,
hear
a
go
liberação
Vulcan,
final
go
aí
Centaur, go Peregrine. This is the final status check of rocket and payload
do
readiness.
diretor de voo, então, aí para o tempo
At
então, de
T-minus
7
7
minutos.
seconds,
Vamos
row
aguardar
fleet
naquele
sparklers will
reloginho que está
ignite,
ali
followed a second later
na
by initiation of
tela
the launch
superior
pad water
esquerda.
deluge system. At T-minus 3 seconds, the main engines ignite. Then, after seeing Vulcan's first ever liftoff from Slick 41, you'll begin hearing flight commentator Rob Gannon providing launch vehicle ascent data.
Agora, hein, pessoal, estamos chegando próximos aí, então, dos 7 minutos para o lançamento. 7 minutos, de acordo com o relógio. Nosso contador, 7 minutos.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T-minus 7 minutes and holding. We anticipate releasing the hold in just a few moments.
Horário de Brasília agora.
On my mark, the time will be T-minus 7 minutes and counting. 3, 2, 1,
Mark. Menos 7 minutos. Menos de 7 minutos, então, para o lançamento.
The countdown clock has resumed, and we are go for launch at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern.
Só estamos ajustando
After
aqui o nosso
liftoff,
cronômetro.
ULA's Vulcan rocket will head east from Space Launch Complex
Agora
41.
sim.
Here's a look at today's ascent.
Following final confirmation.
E aí vamos ver então um pouquinho aí do nosso, como será então o lançamento. Seis minutos. 6 minutos. Lembrando que o Vulcan então, ele pode ter configuração com até 6 boosters auxiliares, né? Hoje só teremos 2. Chegando a hora, hein, pessoal? Tá chegando a hora. Menos de 5 minutos. 5 minutos para o lançamento. Muito obrigado aí pela inscrição. Estamos aí com 971 inscritos no canal. Lembrando que depois, então, teremos depois do lançamento, né? Nós vamos sair transmitir. Depois vocês verão na íntegra, né, o lançamento todo da United Launch Alliance, né, do Vulcan Centaur aí com a certificação aí de voo certificação número 1, né? Precisando então de mais um voo de certificação, né? Para fazer então a integração aí da parte comercial de fato. Né? Então, lembrando que o Peregrine, né, então, vai ser separado, né, após 50 minutos após o lançamento. Menos de 3 minutos e 30 segundos para o lançamento. Estamos ao vivo de novo aí no complexo de lançamento número 41, Cabo Canaveral, Flórida, nos Estados Unidos, faltando 3 minutos para o lançamento do Vulcan Centaur da United Launch Alliance. Horário de lançamento está previsto para as 4h18.
249. FTS internal. 238.
Menos de 2 minutos e 35 segundos.
230.
CLO2 PLP started.
Estamos aí então ao vivo. O mundo inteiro aí acompanhando então este lançamento histórico da United Launch Alliance. 2 minutos.
159.
Vehicle internal. T-minus 2 minutes. The launch vehicle, payload, ground systems, and eastern range are go for launch.
Tudo
For those of
ao
you just
green,
joining, I'm
né?
Amanda
Tudo
Sterling,
verde.
and I'm your host for today's live coverage of the inaugural Vulcan rocket launch. The team is not working any issues, and we're on track for an on-time liftoff at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern Time.
FTS armed.
Menos de 1 minuto e 20 segundos.
120. SCS count started.
Um e 10. Minuto final.
T-minus 1 minute.
1 minuto. Menos. Tudo verde para o lançamento. 50 segundos.
45.
Vulcan tanks at step 3.
40 segundos. 35 segundos. 30.
CE4 start box, go.
Liberado para o lançamento.
Status check. Go Vulcan.
20
Go
segundos.
Go Peregrine.
15 segundos. Estamos agora na parte final da contagem regressiva agora em
T-minus 10.
10.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. We have ignition.
Ignição. E lançou às 4h19 no horário de Brasília. Lançou o Vulcan Centaur. Aí com a certificação de voo número 1 no complexo de lançamento número 41, Cabo Canaveral, Flórida, nos Estados Unidos. Vamos ouvir.
Two good SRBs, hitting peak pressure on the SRBs. Everything looking good. And we've got pitch and yaw programs in, coming into normal rates for that event. We have good hydraulic pressure on both engines. Good chamber pressure on both engines, everything looking good. Coming up on 60 seconds into the flight, everything looking good. 2 good engines, 2 good SRBs. Body rates look good, nice and smooth. And we've hit our first throttle point on the BE4s, everything looking good.
Já estamos aí com 1 minuto e 15 segundos de voo.
Coming up on max Q.
Estamos em max Q.
At max dynamic pressure, everything looking good. We're rolling off on the SRBs. And we have cutoff on the SRBs, coming up on jettison in approximately 30 seconds. "15 seconds to SRB jet. BE4s continue to operate nominally. Seeing expected PU activity on the booster mains.
Separação dos auxiliares, separação dos boosters auxiliares.
Both SRBs, everything looking good. BE4s continue to operate normally.
Veículo segue aí normal aí com seu voo normal. 2 minutos.
We just heard confirmation of solid rocket booster jettison. We have about 3 minutes until we reach our next mission event, booster engine cutoff.
Próximo evento então será o desligamento então do núcleo central, aí o evento chamado como bico, né? Que a gente conhece como bico.
And we now weigh approximately half of our liftoff weight. Everything looking good.
Tudo corre bem aí com o lançamento.
And we fired the power valve, activating the reaction control system. On the upper stage, pressures are rising. As expected, BE4 continues to operate normally.
Tudo segue normal.
Vehicles continue to fly down the center of the range track, everything looking good.
3 minutos.
33 miles in altitude, 52 miles downrange, traveling at 4,000 miles per hour. Continue to see excellent performance out of the BE4s. Chamber pressure nice and smooth.
Estamos aguardando então o aumento do desligamento do núcleo central.
Vehicle steadily accelerating, a little over 2 Gs at this time. Good body rates. Nice and smooth operation of the booster. 47 miles in altitude, 95 miles downrange at 5,500 miles per hour.
Estamos então aguardando o aumento do mico.
Continue to burn normally, everything looking good.
Tudo normal até o momento. Quatro minutos.
And the vehicle now weighs 1/4 of its liftoff weight as we pass through the Kármán line.
Tudo segue normal.
Next mark event we're looking for is boost phase chill down on the Centaur main engines. Booster mains continue to operate normally. And we've begun boost phase chill. Housing temps are dropping as expected. Coming up to the end of the boost phase, approximately 10 seconds to BECO. Throttle down in preparation for BECO. We've completed boost phase chill down. And we
Estamos aí
have
com dados de telemetria.
Coming up on Vulcan Centaur separation.
Bico. E separação. Separação do estágio 1 do núcleo central com o estágio 2. Aguardando a ignição do estágio 2. E temos ignição. Temos ignição. Ignição do estágio 2 confirmada. Abertura da carga da coifa.
Good steady state operating levels on the Centaur mains. 2 good engines. Gone to open loop control on Centaur PU.
Então o estágio 2 do Vulcan segue aí
This is Vulcan
normalmente.
Mission Control at T plus 5 minutes 57 seconds. We just heard flight commentator Rob Gannon confirm the successful completion of the early phase of today's flight, and all systems continue to operate nominally. Our next event, main engine cutoff, will occur in about 10 minutes. While we wait,
Em
I'm
10
joined
minutos, então,
by
teremos
Amanda Pichetti,
o
ULA
desligamento
Director
do
of Vehicle
segundo estágio.
Upgrades. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us, and I know it's still early, but congratulations.
Thank you. You as well. This is amazing.
How did it feel to watch the Vulcan rocket lift off for the first time?
Oh, just absolutely amazing. I didn't expect it to be the way it was. It just, my heart is still pounding. It was excellent, and just, I'm so proud of all the work that the team did to get where we are today.
Absolutely, and developing a new rocket is an enormous endeavor of which you were a huge part. Again, we're still early, but how do you imagine the whole Vulcan team is feeling right now?
I feel like they have to be the same way, you know, smile ear to ear. I know the team is at all our sites, friends and family. They've been supporting us for many years to get to where we are, so I'm sure they are jumping up and down just like me. It's been amazing.
How is the Vulcan rocket going to change the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Vulcan is very much based on our heritage rockets, the Delta IV and Atlas V vehicles, but we've brought in a lot of new innovation and capabilities that are going to allow us to even better support our warfighters, exploration, as well as connecting the world. And the great thing about Vulcan is it's highly versatile, meaning we can use that vehicle to do anything we want, allows for affordability for anybody who needs access
Então
to
lembrando que o deploy do
Absolutely,
Peregrine
and so this is
aí é
the
na marca
first
de 50
certification
minutos.
flight. What are the next steps for Vulcan after this?
Yeah, so with the first flight,
Mas
we are
antes
well
então, aí
underway
menos de
from a
11,
certification
menos de 9
perspective. We
minutos,
do have a second flight
iremos
that we'll
ter
need to
aí
do
o
here later this
desligamento
year.
do segundo
Once that
estágio.
completed, we'll have about 2 months or so of post-flight data testing, and then at that point we will be certified by the U.S. Space Force, and we will be ready to fly all of their important payloads for them.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll let you get back and watch the next mission
Excellent.
events.
Congratulations again.
Thanks, you too.
Coming up on 500 seconds into the mission. Everything's looking good. Continuing to burn Centaur. Body rates look right as expected. Steady acceleration, just under half a G.
Então tudo continua correndo
We are
bem.
now 235 miles in altitude, 836 miles
Estamos aí
downrange,
chegando à
traveling
marca
at
de 9 minutos.
11,150 miles per hour. Continue to see nominal performance from Centaur.
Nove minutos. Quatro horas e 28 minutos no horário de Brasília. No topo aí então do estágio 2, vocês podem acompanhar aí o Peregrine da Astrobotic, módulo de pouso lunar aí da NASA, junto com a NASA.
We're now 1,000 miles downrange, traveling at 11,500
E lembrando que a outra carga, né, a segunda carga, então vai fazer o voo para o espaço profundo. Em homenagem então a Voyager. Dez minutos.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 10 minutes 7 seconds. Our next event, main engine cutoff, will occur in about 5 minutes. While we wait, I'm joined by
Daqui a
Eric
5
Monda,
minutos
part of
teremos
ULA's mission
o
design team.
desligamento
Eric,
do
thanks for
segundo
joining us.
estágio.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So we're still pretty early in this flight today, but can you tell us how the data is looking so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to say that it was so exciting. I ran outside so I could watch this thing lift off, and that was so cool after so many years of development to watch this thing fly. That was fantastic.
Absolutely, I bet.
Yeah.
So what is the data showing us so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a very quick look. Obviously, we're very early in the flight still, but I've taken a look at the SRB performance as well as the booster performance so far, and everything looks just spot on, just perfect. Fortunately, we've had a lot of these systems on Atlas and Delta for a long time, and so we have a lot of flight data to anchor our models, and everything is lining up just like we would expect.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of the audience has seen us switch from this live view of the launch from our rocket cam to this animated representation of the vehicle in space. Can you talk a little bit about why we make that switch and how this visual is populated?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first lift off, we have a feed directly from the cameras that are on the rocket back to the launch site here. And so with that, we can get the video feed that we need in order to provide those images. As we get further downrange and we go over the horizon, we no longer have that direct link. And so we rely on NASA's TETR system to send telemetry from the vehicle back down to us on the ground. In that telemetry data, we get information like position and attitude and velocity, and so we use that to drive the animations you see here.
Okay, so we're looking at real data, what's happening, it's just a graphic of it instead of the real thing.
That's exactly right, yes.
Awesome, that's really cool. So, today right now we're in the first of 3 Centaur burns. Can you talk a little bit about why we need 3 burns and how we use those 3 burns to complete our mission today?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first burn performs our injection into low Earth orbit. Unfortunately, if we just continue that burn from that point in time, we wouldn't necessarily be aligned with where we need to be in order to get to the moon. So what we do after we get to low Earth orbit is we shut those engines down, we coast around until we get to the right spot to do that, and then we light those engines up again. When we do that and complete that burn, that will allow us to send the Astrobotic Peregrine Lander onto the moon. So we shut those engines down again. We are ready to do that, and then start them up one more time in order to do the third burn. And that's what's going to take Celestis' Enterprise mission out to deep space. So let's talk a little bit about where these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go ahead and shut down the main engines on the Centaur when we get about halfway across the Atlantic Ocean. And then we're going to coast the rest of the way across the Atlantic Ocean, across Africa, and go ahead and start the engines up again when we get to Madagascar. And that's where we'll do the second burn. And then we coast again until we get about to Papua New Guinea. And when we get over Papua New Guinea, that's where we'll go ahead and do that third and final burn.
Okay, so
Não se esqueça, de deixar o like na transmissão e se inscrever no nosso canal UltraTV. Estamos aí acompanhando a missão Vulcan 7. Missão então de certificação número 1 do veículo Vulcan Centaur da United Launch Alliance. Estamos já com 13 minutos e 40 segundos de voo. Estamos aí no estágio 2 do Vulcan. Lembrando ali que no topo, né? Quem está chegando agora, no topo ali do estágio 2, está o módulo lunar, aí Peregrine, da Astrobotic e conjunto com a NASA. Vai fazer então o pouso na Lua. E a outra carga
Awesome. Well, thank
vai
you so
em
much for
direção
sharing that
então
with us,
ao
and thanks
espaço
for
profundo
joining us
em
today.
homenagem
And we'll
a
let you get
Voyager.
back to watching those next events.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Amanda.
Thanks.
Tempo total de duração desta missão é de 4 horas e 24 minutos. Mas a liberação então do Peregrine, né, que será o primeiro, aí será no tempo de 50 minutos. E o lançamento aconteceu com sucesso lá no Cabo Canaveral, no complexo de lançamento número 41. Estamos aguardando então aí o desligamento do segundo estágio.
1 minute, D'Amico. Both engines firing normally.
É o primeiro desligamento de 3 que vamos ter aí ao longo da trajetória aí do Vulcan.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 15 minutes 30 seconds. We are approaching the first main engine cutoff. Let's listen in.
Coming up on MECO 1.
E temos aí nosso primeiro ponto de desligamento do segundo estágio.
On to open loop control, Miko. We have cutoff. Both engines show normal shutdown
E aí,
signature.
shutdown.
We
Shutdown.
have
Desligamento.
settling established, 85% duty cycle. We are now in a 27-minute, 51-second coast duration to second burn of Centaur.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus
Desligamento,
16
então, do
minutes, 20
segundo
seconds.
estágio.
We just heard flight commentator Rob Gannon confirm successful cutoff of the first main engine, and all systems continue to operate nominally. Our next event, Main Engine Start 2, will occur in about 27 minutes. At this time, we'll pass the broadcast back to the NASA team to continue with mission coverage through the coast phase. We'll join you back in as we approach the separation of the Peregrine spacecraft. Over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Amanda. Congratulations to you and the ULA team
segundos,
so
né?
far.
Teremos
If you're just joining us,
aí
welcome to the
ponto
Space
de
Coast of
ignição
Florida, where we just witnessed the first launch of NASA's
do estágio 2
CLPS
do Vulcan.
initiative. It was a
E aí, logo depois,
magnificent
a
sight.
separação
Leaves me speechless, apparently.
Peregrine
Just really
na
lighting
marca
up
de
the night
50
sky and
minutos.
loud enough to set off a couple of car alarms nearby. CLPS is short for Commercial Lunar Payload Services. It's a new model in which NASA contracts space on commercial missions to send science experiments to the moon ahead of us landing astronauts there. For today's launch, NASA selected Astrobotic to deliver its 5 lunar instruments. This is the first mission for its Peregrine spacecraft. Today was also the first launch of ULA's new Vulcan rocket. Again, congrats. It lifted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's Launch Pad 41. Our broadcast here on NASA TV will continue through Peregrine acquisition of signal, which is expected to happen at the earliest around 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time. With me now is Sandra Connolly. She's the Deputy Associate Administrator of NASA's Science Mission Directorate. Good morning, and thanks for being here, Sandra.
Good morning. It's a thrill to be here.
Yeah, what did you think of the launch?
It was amazing. Yet another beautiful ULA launch. Totally spectacular, and it's super exciting to know that now our Peregrine One lander is on
Fazer um
its
pequeno
way
intervalo, mas
to
já
the moon in
voltamos.
about 2.5
18 minutos
weeks. We're
então
gonna
com
go into orbit,
depois do lançamento,
and
né?
2
Já
weeks
eu
later
volto.
from that, in mid to late February, we're going to actually see it land, and that will be the first. Well, actually, it'll be one of the early landings on the moon since Apollo, over 50 years, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. U.S. landings on the moon.
Yeah, it is. And the CLPS is new as well. So talk to us a little bit about this program. We're using commercial companies to send science instruments to the moon for us. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this program. It is a game-changing program for us. It really is leveraging industry in new ways. As you've probably seen, I mean, the whole aerospace industry has evolved over this last decade in amazing ways, and I think this is just yet one more step in doing so. So our commercial partners are actually delivering a service. They're delivering our payloads and other organizational payloads, whether it's other companies, whether it's international partners. Basically, anybody who wants to procure the service can deliver a payload to the moon using the CLPS program.
And so there are 20 payloads flying on the Peregrine spacecraft right now. 5 of those are NASA's. Can you tell me a little bit about what they'll be studying once they get to the moon?
Yeah, so again, amazing service. So our payloads are going to be studying things, including understanding, studying water, studying the volatiles or the resources on the moon, studying the atmosphere, and also the radiation environment to help inform us for the future when we have humans back on the moon.
Sandra, thank you so much. I'm excited to see what we do with this initiative and this launch here today.
Thank you so much, and let me just say, go Vulcan and go Peregrine One.
Yes, you can totally say that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, so when Peregrine lands on the near side of the moon on February 23rd, it will be one of the first lunar landings for the U.S. since the final Apollo mission over 50 years ago. Let's head back over to Astrobotic's Olivia Chapla.
Thanks, Megan, and what a great day so far. So for those of you just tuning in, I wanted to reintroduce myself. I'm Olivia Chapla, Director of Marketing and Communications for Astrobotic. Astrobotic is a space company with our primary headquarters in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we've just watched our Peregrine Lunar Lander rocket into space aboard a United Launch Alliance Vulcan rocket. This Peregrine spacecraft's mission is to carry 20 payloads or cargo to the lunar surface from 7 different countries. 6 of those nations have never reached the moon before. Our aim is to autonomously land on the lunar surface a few weeks from now. We're taking the long way around, and we expect Peregrine to land on February 23rd, 2024. We've got all eyes on the Peregrine lander as it waits to separate from the Vulcan rocket in about 30 minutes. At that point, we will seek to establish communications with the lander. And now we'll take a more in-depth look at Peregrine's full journey to the moon with an animation. Once ULA's Vulcan rocket launches, we will then know the exact day the Peregrine spacecraft will attempt a soft landing on the moon. The first landing attempt could be anywhere from 10 to 60 days from launch. Because this is Peregrine's first ever trip to the moon, our team is not taking a direct path. Peregrine will first complete one Earth orbit so the team can get critical data on the spacecraft and test maneuvers before executing a very critical milestone, entering lunar orbit. Peregrine will orbit the moon at 3 altitudes. The first orbit will last about 33 hours. Peregrine's second orbit can be up to 35 days. The spacecraft's third and final orbit around the moon will last 48 hours. Next up, Peregrine will attempt a soft landing on the lunar surface autonomously. The team will issue a landing sequence that will command the spacecraft to enter a descent orbit. About 15 kilometers from the lunar surface, an exciting powered descent begins. While we wait for the Peregrine spacecraft to separate from the Vulcan rocket and begin that exciting journey to the moon, I have Astrobotic's founder and Chief Executive Officer, John Thornton. Hi there, John. I understand you are currently at ULA, just a stone's throw from where I am now, and we both just saw ULA's Vulcan rocket achieve liftoff with our very own Peregrine aboard. Tell me, after waiting for this moment for years, how are you feeling?
It's a dream. This is the moment we've been waiting for 16 years, and I'm standing in mission control, and we just had a beautiful launch. Thank you, ULA. So excited. We are on our way to the moon.
I can tell you and everyone else are in a really excited buzz today for sure. So tell me, what else do you think is the most important thing about our Peregrine mission today?
So this is the beginning of the dawn of a new era for the surface of the moon and how we think about space. This is an opportunity for commercial payloads to fly to the surface of the moon on a regular routine basis. That means our nation's scientists, our world scientists, can access the moon in ways never before possible. And we are seeing the beginnings of that right now as we speak on our journey to the surface of the moon. Our first mission carries 20 payloads from all over the world. 6 nations on board the mission will touch the surface of the moon for the very first time. It's a phenomenal, exciting mission to be a part of, and it's a real honor to be here today, and I could not imagine a better start to the mission.
That's true. And what do you have to say to the Astrobotic team and to all of the payload customers who made today's mission possible?
For 16 years, we've been pushing for this moment today. And along the way, we had a lot of hard challenges that we had to overcome, and a lot of people doubted us along the way. But our team and the people that supported us believed in the mission, and they created this beautiful moment that we're seeing today, working incredibly hard to make this possible. I can't thank the thousands of people between our team, our suppliers, our partners that have made this moment possible today. It's an unbelievable feat, and it is the culmination of all of everyone's effort coming together for this moment, believing in this possibility that a small company in Pittsburgh, of all places in this country, can lead America back to the surface of the moon.
Thank you, John. Well, I'll let you get back to the team that are in Florida with us as we wait for the Peregrine spacecraft to separate from Vulcan's rocket in about 30 to 40 minutes. For now, back to Megan.
Thanks, Olivia.
Oh, thank you.
Now, CLPS missions are an important step in returning to and staying on the moon. But these lunar landings that will help shape our future there are not without risks.
Mas lembrando que o tempo total desta missão é de 4 horas e 24 minutos. no nosso canal aqui no YouTube, né? Para quem está acompanhando, né? Faltam aí menos de 29 inscrições para então chegarmos à marca de 1000 inscritos aqui no canal. Então aí cada vez mais estamos aí perto aí da nossa marca pessoal, marca minha pessoal aí de 1000 inscritos no canal. Então eu quero agradecer, né, todos os inscritos, né, que depois então desta transmissão aí irão acompanhar como foi então aí o voo, né, da Vulcan. E lembrando que também nós temos um programa na Twitch, né, chamado Resumo das Missões, onde apresentamos tudo o que aconteceu ao longo do dia aí dos lançamentos ao redor do mundo. E no programa de hoje, né, aí na Twitch, né, nós vamos mostrar tudo aí que aconteceu então durante este voo do Vulcan, aí da certificação então número 1. Lembrando que ele precisa então de mais um voo de certificação para que ele seja incluído aí então aí para as missões futuras, né, de transporte de carga. Podem acompanhar ali. Agora saiu os dados de telemetria. O Vulcan Centaur, o estágio 2, então aí segue voando ali, então a sua missão.
Categorize these objectives into
E aí
5
temos
stages,
aí
beginning with engineering it here
as
on Earth.
próximas etapas, então, aí do voo.
First, we built and tested a bolt-for-bolt engineering model of Peregrine.
Esse
Based
aí,
on their
então, é o
findings, we
Peregrine,
constructed the final spacecraft to send to the
módulo
moon.
de pouso
Each iteration of Peregrine
lunar.
went through rigorous testing to ensure it will survive the harsh conditions of launch and space environments. Phase 2 objectives will begin when the spacecraft separates from the rocket. Once separated, Peregrine will power on and establish communications with Earth. At this stage, we'll receive telemetry informing us of the spacecraft's position, orientation, and general operational health. One of the first commands we send to the spacecraft will initiate thrusters to point Peregrine's solar panels at the sun to charge its battery. We are planning for all of these objectives to be completed today. Next, and off-camera, our Phase 3 objectives begin. These objectives include trajectory adjustment maneuvers in space before lunar orbit insertion. After lunar insertion, Peregrine will complete 3 orbits around the moon. Then, the last phase of the mission
Depois da
begins,
primeira
lunar
inserção
landing
de
and
órbita, né,
operations.
a Peregrine então vai fazer 3
And for a closer look at landing, I'm joined now
descidas
by
de
Mike
órbita,
Hennessy, Educational
até
Director
então
of the
o
Moonshot
pouso.
Museum in Pittsburgh. Good morning to you.
Não é similar
It's spectacular to be here
do
today.
Absolutely, we
que
saw a launch, right?
Yeah, and it was
que
awesome.
foi na
absolutely.
Chandria
So, talk to me
da
about
Índia.
Peregrine and the spacecraft we have you on because you know a lot about Peregrine
20
and this
minutos
mission.
para a
Why is
liberação do
Well,
Peregrine.
every day I've had a front row seat at Peregrine under construction. I work at the Moonshot Museum, and we share a wall of windows with Astrobotic. And better yet, I've seen kids with their faces pressed
Pelo
against the
horário de
glass,
Brasília, agora são
knowing that they're
4
going to grow up
horas
to
e
become the next
49
generation of
minutos.
makers that take us to the moon.
Estamos
That's
então a 20
fantastic. And you
minutos
also
da
brought us some
liberação do
props here. So
Peregrine
these are different
da NASA
parts, different
e
materials that
Astrobotic.
make up the multi-layer insulation. That's what goes around the spacecraft, right?
Right, that's the thermal protective space blanket for the craft. And we have a number of different materials here. This is Astro Quartz. It's a woven ceramic fiber, very heat resistant. We've got aluminum, which is great for reflecting solar heat. And this is also aluminum. Glitters a little more like gold, but
Yes.
it's just aluminum that's been covered with a polymer called Kapton. And you can see it actually on our model here. We have of the Peregrine lander.
Right here. This is
Yeah.
the multi-layer insulation.
Yeah, we've got
we're
the
talking about.
multi-layer insulation, and that's wrapping these fuel tanks, kind of like cosmic baked potatoes.
And why do we need all these different materials?
Well, the moon is a harsh environment, and it takes a lot of technical know-how to land there. There's no atmospheric blanket like we have on Earth. So we need a thermal space blanket to protect against wild temperature extremes. Boiling hot days, freezing cold nights, several hundred degrees below zero, and Peregrine's been engineered to endure that.
Okay, so now we know how it will be protected during landing. How will it land? What technologies are we using to make sure that it lands safely when you say that the moon isn't the easiest place to land on?
Right, and that's my favorite part of the story because this robot is going to land itself. Because we have about a 2.5 second signal delay from the Earth to the moon and back, it's like having a self-driving car going to another world. We have a full suite of sensors, gyroscopes, Doppler, LiDAR, star trackers, and a really cool technology called Terrain Relative Navigation, or TRN. About 9 miles out, Peregrine will activate its camera, and as it's descending, and the camera is taking pictures, the computer will be playing kind of a high-speed game of flashcards, comparing those pictures to 3D maps, and then Peregrine will have to make decisions in order to come to a landing. We're going to test drive this technology on Peregrine, and then on Astrobotic's next lunar lander, Griffin, TRN will be in the driver's seat when we head to the moon's south pole.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I know Griffin is going to be delivering another NASA payload, so another partnership where we get to do this together.
Yeah, I think another great example of how CLPS is bringing together entrepreneurship and accelerating the pace of science and taking us out into the solar system.
Mike, thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, so the Astrobotic team hopes to land on the near side of the moon on February 23rd in a place called the Bay of Stickiness, a lunar feature formed by ancient hardened lava flow. It's located outside of the Gruithuisen domes, which is the largest dark spot on the moon. Why does NASA want to conduct science here? Well, on Earth, formations like these domes need significant water and also plate tectonics to form. But without these key elements on the moon, lunar scientists have been left to wonder how the domes formed and evolved over time. We'll, of course, have coverage of the landing on our NASA Plus app or whichever social platform you watch us on. Now, earlier in the show, we told you about the NERVIS payload from NASA's Ames Research Center. The other payload from Ames is the Neutron Spectrometer System, or NSS.
I'm Rick Elphick. I'm the
Que esta missão também do Peregrine, né, da NASA, também, como ele está comentando, está com o áudio ligado, ele vai captar, então, aí, pontos de localização, então, de superfície, da superfície da Lua, aí, pontos, então, onde tem água.
Wonderful day.
It is. We just watched the launch. What did you think?
It was amazing. Oh my God, what a wonderful flight. That rocket was gorgeous.
Yeah, and so NASA has 5 payloads hitching a ride. Tell me about the different things that they'll be studying and why they're studying those things.
So, this early mission for CLPS, this is our first mission. So our first 2 early missions are mostly carrying small instruments that help us learn more about the environment at the moon. As we get further into CLPS in future missions, we'll raise the complexity and start studying more complex, more difficult questions. But at the beginning, we're mostly trying to characterize what the moon is like, what the radiation does, what kind of environment we can find there. It doesn't have an atmosphere, but there's particles and dust and other things. We're trying to get more information about that so that we can help guide
podemos
future
acompanhar
human missions
por dados de telemetria.
And how soon could we see data from some of those instruments so that we can start creating that fuller picture?
We'll start getting data back within hours of landing on the moon.
O peregrino aí no topo.
Now, the scientists will need some time to analyze that information and turn it into the kind of information that helps guide future missions. But we should be getting data back from the moon within a few hours of landing, and we'll all the way for as long as 14 days on the moon. We'll be gathering that data. But the scientists will then take that information offline and analyze it for a while.
So basically, these missions, these instruments that we're sending, they're scouting the moon for us.
Yes. Yeah, they're telling us what the moon is like, helping us understand what we need to know so that we can take humans there safely. It also allows us to better design future instruments and other experiments that will pinpoint the kinds of things we need to know about the moon to be able to work and live there.
Chris, thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Janeiro de 2024.
Okay, so we're now less than a few minutes away until the
horário de Brasília agora 4 horas e 56 minutos.
Center upper stage. We're going to go back to ULA for that milestone, but before that, another quick status update on Peregrine from Olivia.
Estamos aí então nessa cobertura especial.
Thanks, Megan. And now I'm checking in on Astrobotic's mission control team. In about 20 to 30 minutes, they're expecting Peregrine to power on, and then try to communicate with them on the ground. Peregrine will establish ground communications with NASA's Deep Space Network, and then we will begin receiving telemetry. As we wait for those milestones, here's an in-depth look at the inner workings of the Peregrine Lunar Lander. And now we'll take a look at the Peregrine spacecraft. You'll notice that
a liberação do Vulcan, do Peregrine, né? Então aí será no tempo de 50 minutos. Aí depois da liberação do Peregrine, na marca de 50 minutos, não sabemos se vão continuar a transmissão até o tempo final de 4 horas e 24 minutos, né, que é o tempo de duração desta missão.
of Peregrine is something you can't see. It's the hundreds of people who have worked on, tested, and gotten the spacecraft to the launch pad today. A shout out to the team we like calling the Astrobots, and a shout out to our payload customers who are sending their items to the moon with us. Your continued commitment to science and lunar exploration is important for humanity.
No tempo então de 40 minutos, aí o tempo de ignição, menos de 3 minutos então para o novo ponto de ignição do estágio 2 do Vulcan. Você está assistindo então ao canal Will PTV. Então este é o pequeno Hoover também aí que está aí no Peregrine. Que vai então fazer aí análises da superfície da Lua. Dez minutos também para a liberação do Peregrine. 5 horas pelo horário de Brasília. Lembrando, claro, de quem ainda está assistindo aqui a nossa transmissão, né, de deixar o like na transmissão e também de se inscrever no nosso canal. Faltando apenas 29 inscritos aí para a marca
20 payloads aboard Peregrine. Again, you can find the full list on Astrobotic's website. Now back to Megan.
We are now less than 10 minutes away from Peregrine separation, so let's get back over to the ULA team and Amanda Sterling to take us through that.
Thanks, Megan, and thanks to those of you who are still following mission progress of ULA's Vulcan CERT-1 flight. For those who are just tuning in, I'm Amanda Sterling, and I'm here at ULA's Advanced Spaceflight Operations Center at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. ULA's inaugural Vulcan rocket lifted off on its first flight test at 2:18:38 a.m. Eastern, and all systems continue to operate nominally.
Minute, 1 second burn.
Estamos aguardando então o segundo ponto de ignição.
And we've begun pressurizing the propellant tanks in preparation for second burn. Coming up on LH2 pre-start. LH2 pre-start.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 43 minutes, 8 seconds. Coming up next is the second main engine start of ULA's Centaur upper stage. Let's listen in.
Change to the start position, everything looking good. About 15 seconds to mess.
15 segundos para o ponto de ignição.
We have ignition.
Ignição.
Full thrust. 2 good engines.
5 horas e 2 minutos. Tivemos então aí o segundo ponto de ignição do estágio 2 do Vulcan.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 43 minutes, 57 seconds. As we approach Peregrine separation, let's learn more about the first spacecraft to launch in NASA's new CLPS initiative to have American companies send its science experiments to the moon.
Astrobotic is a full
Dentro de menos de 4 minutos, aí então teremos a liberação do Peregrine. Pelo horário de Brasília, agora 5 horas e 6 minutos. Estamos aguardando então o desligamento, segundo desligamento.
T plus 47 minutes 8 seconds.
Estamos aguardando
We're a few
então o
seconds from
segundo
the second main
desligamento.
engine cutoff. Here's Rob Gannon.
30 seconds to nominal MECO.
37 segundos para o desligamento do segundo estágio. Segundo desligamento.
20 seconds.
20 segundos.
We're going to open loop on PU. Coming up on cutoff. We have cutoff.
E desligamento.
Everything is looking
Shutdown. Desligamento então, segundo desligamento
And we're
confirmando.
now in a 2-minute 49-second coast phase of spacecraft separation.
Dentro
And
de
we've got
2 minutos,
full settling going.
teremos
After
aí a
MECO.
liberação do
And
Peregrine.
we're reorienting to spacecraft SEP attitude.
Cinco horas e 7 minutos. Estamos aguardando então o momento da liberação do Astrobotic Peregrine.
And continuing to maneuver to our MES-2 attitude.
e 49 minutos. Estamos só aguardando então a liberação do Peregrine.
And we're inside a 1.5 to spacecraft separation. Body rates are nulling out. And this mission does call for a roll spin for spacecraft separation of 0.5 degree per second. We'll be starting that maneuver shortly.
5 horas e 8 minutos. $50 minutos já de missão completadas, 5 horas e 9 minutos pelo horário de Brasília.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 50 minutes 10 seconds. Vulcan has executed all mission events expected, and we are now approaching delivery of the Astrobotic Peregrine Commercial Lunar Lander into a highly elliptical orbit, more than 220,000 miles above Earth to intercept the Moon. Let's return to flight commentator Rob
E liberação,
Gannon as we approach
liberação
separation.
do Peregrine, liberação do Peregrine, às 5 horas e 9 minutos pelo horário de Brasília. E aí tivemos então a liberação do Peregrine após 50 minutos de voo. Parabéns Vulcan, parabéns United Launch Alliance.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T plus 51 minutes 6 seconds. We just heard confirmation of Peregrine spacecraft separation. I'm now back with ULA President and CEO Tori Bruno. Tori, our first Vulcan rocket just delivered its first payload to orbit. How are you feeling?
Então a missão do Vulcan.
I am so thrilled. I can't tell you how much.
Absolutely.
Tem que comemorar, né?
And again, we're not completely done with the mission here today. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
I am so proud
Agora
of
então
this
o próximo
team. Oh
evento,
my
né,
gosh,
do
this
nosso
has
voo
been
será
years
o
of hard
segundo
work.
ponto,
So far this has
terceiro
been
ponto de
absolutely
ignição
beautiful
do
mission.
estágio
Back to the
2
moon and off to our
aí na
next
marca
burn where
de
we will do our
1 hora
final payload
18
deployment to that
minutos
heliocentric
e aí
orbit
depois
for the memorial.
final da
Our
nossa
team has
missão
done such a good job.
tempo
Bravo Zulu to everyone.
de 4
This
minutos
is
e
just,
24 segundos.
it's hard to describe.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that too. So again, thank you so much for joining us on our show. Congratulations, and we'll let you get back to finish the rest of the mission.
Congratulations to you. Give me a hug. All right.
Podem comemorar então aí à vontade, né? Vulcan Centaur aí realizando aí sua primeira missão com sucesso. Até o momento. A liberação então aí do Astrobotic Peregrine.
Time, we're going to pass the broadcast back to the NASA team to continue mission coverage. We'll be joining back in as we approach the final engine burn. Over to you, Megan.
Thank you, Amanda, and well done, ULA team. So throughout the broadcast, we have been telling you about the 5 NASA payloads that are flying on this mission. We've shown you in depth 3 of them, and now we have the final 2. So NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center has 2 payloads aboard today's flight, and one of those is the Peregrine Ion Trap Mass Spectrometer, aka PITMAS. Its job is to understand the release and movement of lunar surface volatiles like water.
My name is Barbara Cohen. I am the principal.
Lembrando que então dentro de instantes, na marca de 1 hora e 18 minutos, né? Então teremos aí o último ponto de ignição do segundo estágio do Vulcan. Então aí o Peregrino agora segue em viagem então para a Lua.
Retroreflector, or LRA. It's a unique type of mirror used to measure distance, and this is why it's so critical for future missions.
My name is
"55 minutes since Vulcan and Peregrine lifted off from the space coast of Florida. Let's get back to Olivia and the Astrobotic team as they work to confirm acquisition of signal with their spacecraft.
Thanks, Megan.
Então, estamos aguardando a confirmação da equalização do sinal com o Vulcan do Peregrine.
Space-to-ground communications connection. We expect for this to take a few more minutes. This connection helps engineers in Astrobotic's Mission Control Center pass commands, receive telemetry, and determine the location of Peregrine in space. Peregrine will be utilizing NASA's Deep Space Network, or DSN, their 34-meter dishes in Australia, Spain, and California. These dishes are the same suite used to communicate with the James Webb Telescope, as well as other historic missions. So our flight director on console, Alex Van Hoven, will be calling out what is happening in Astrobotic's Mission Control Center. And now, as we look at Astrobotic's Mission Control Center, you can see the rows of our staff all monitoring the spacecraft. In the room today, we have 3
broadcast.
of 6.
This is Mission Control Flight Director announcement. Repeat broadcast. This is Mission Control Flight Director with an announcement. The mission team is still waiting for communications with Peregrine with earliest AOS at 080905 UTC in approximate 2.5 minutes. To repeat, the mission team is still waiting for communication with Peregrine with the earliest AOS expected at 080905 UTC.
And folks, that was Alex Van Hoven, our flight director on console. He is calling out UTC times, or sort of space times, and we're waiting for that acquisition of signal with the Peregrine spacecraft.
Correction, earliest AOS at 0818 UTC. Earliest AOS at 0818 UTC.
Now you can almost see Alex Van Hoven in the back row, right below the eye in Astrobotic. You can kind of see his head. Maybe he'll stand up for us.
Estamos aguardando então
He's very focused
os
and
dados
busy.
então aí do Peregrine chegar, a equalização de sinal aí do Peregrine.
Today we have 3 of 6 flight directors on console for launch. Once we establish communications with Peregrine and the spacecraft officially begins its journey towards the moon, the flight directors will work in shifts so there is always one present in mission control. I would ask them to all give a wave, but they're definitely laser focused on their screens, checking up on the spacecraft. Now Alex, he's giving us those live updates, and he is also senior aerospace engineer, and he oversaw the development of Peregrine's in-flight procedures. He developed his flight expertise as part of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center.
Broadcast, Mission Control Flight Director announcement. I repeat, broadcast, Mission Control Flight Director announcement. At this time, Astrobotic has confirmed that we have established communications with Peregrine, and we are now receiving live telemetry. I repeat, we have just established communications with DSN and can confirm that we are receiving telemetry from the satellite.
Now confirming,
E aí temos a confirmação da comunicação com o Peregrine às 5 horas 18 minutos.
The team will begin sending commands
o
to
horário
Peregrine to
de Brasília,
continue
então
its journey
temos aí a
to the lunar
confirmação
surface. What an incredible day.
com o
Now,
Peregrine.
thank you so much for continuing to tune in with us to watch this historic launch of Astrobotic's Peregrine Lunar Lander on its journey to the moon. I'm Olivia Chapla with Astrobotic, and it is such a happy day for Astrobotic. I'm kind of speechless. So back to Megan at the hostess. Thank you very much.
Hey, congratulations, Olivia. I know that must have been really nerve-wracking to see such a big moment and it being finally here. So congratulations to her and the rest of the team. And actually right now here with me I have Andy Jones, and he is the director of landers and spacecraft for Astrobotic. And Andy, I saw you were over off the camera, but I saw you go, yes!
Da equalização de sinal,
we confirmed
às
acquisition
5 horas
so talk us through that. How are you
18
feeling?
minutos.
Relieved.
Pelo horário de Brasília. Já completamos 1 hora de missão. 1 hora de missão até agora. Aí com o voo de certificação. Primeiro voo de certificação com
Yeah,
o
at least you didn't
Vulcan
have to wait long. You know, there was a window, right? We got it right at the beginning of the possible window.
Just a credit to all the great work the team has done to actually get it to acquire it so fast.
Yeah.
It's just a brilliant set of machine, brilliant people working on it. So
yeah,
very proud.
Yeah, what would you say to the team? You know, again, I know that you guys have been working on this for years. What would you say to them as it culminates in this moment right now?
Teremos aí o último ponto de ignição do estágio.
Not even going to give them a break. Okay, we're hard-working folks at Astrobotic, guys.
No, extremely proud. The team should be extremely proud of themselves. It's been a fast road, a lot of setbacks, a lot of ups, lots of downs. The team took everything in their stride.
Lembrando que aqui no nosso canal UPTV você encontra a melhor cobertura das transmissões então das missões ao redor do mundo.
And what's next for Astrobotic and NASA? You know, it seems like we're going back to the moon for a second time, huh?
As caminhadas espaciais você também acompanha aqui no nosso canal na íntegra, aí sem interrupções.
Following that, we have as early as 2026 a tipping point where we do a demonstration of power.
Pelo horário de Brasília agora são 5 horas e 20 minutos.
Astrobotic is part of the national team led by
Lembrando sempre, claro, de você estar se inscrevendo aqui no nosso canal, de curtir, comentar e compartilhar. E também siga o canal nas redes sociais para acompanhar toda a programação do nosso canal. Lembrando que nos nossos próximos eventos, aí no dia 9, aí teremos, a princípio, 3 lançamentos chineses da China. No dia 10, missão Starlink, aí lá na Califórnia, no grupo 710. E no dia 11, missão direto do Japão, aí com a IGS. IGS 8. IGS Optical 8. Direto então lá do Japão. O H2A.
For us to be there, and it's just helping us get there much faster.
Andy, thank you so much, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
And that's going to do it for us here at Kennedy Space Center. Thank you for sharing in the excitement of NASA's first CLPS launch. Now on its own, the Peregrine spacecraft will coast for an expected arrival at the moon on February 23rd. And coverage of that landing, one of the first U.S. landings on the moon in over 50 years.
Em fevereiro, aí teremos aí o pouso
For those of you watching on ULA platforms, the
esperado
ULA
então
version
do
of the simulcast
Peregrine,
will
né, para
continue
fevereiro.
in a few moments as they await another milestone in this inaugural Vulcan flight. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We leave you now with a final look at today's
Então a NASA
historic
está
launch.
encerrando a sua transmissão aí com o voo do Vulcan, com reprise. Né, vamos ver se a United Launch Alliance, né, vai continuar então aí a transmissão. Não, também está encerrando também por lá. Né, então, tanto a NASA quanto a United Launch Alliance, né, estão encerrando as suas transmissões. Então, a United Launch Alliance está continuando a sua transmissão. Vamos para lá. Vamos então continuar acompanhando com a United Launch Alliance. Para o segundo ponto de ignição.
To operate nominally. Our next mission event is the third main engine burn, which will carry the
Então vamos para
Celestis
o
Memorial
terceiro ponto de
Spaceflight payload
ignição
to deep space.
do estágio 2
While we wait, let's learn more about this
aí
special
do
payload.
Vulcan. Estamos ainda continuando então aí a nossa transmissão em conjunto agora com a United Launch Alliance. Aí com o voo de certificação número 1 da Vulcan Centaur. Lembrando que aqui vocês acompanham todas as missões então na íntegra, né? Que é possível aí transmitir para vocês, né? Vocês não perdem nenhum detalhe. Você está então assistindo o nosso canal UPTV, agora com a United Launch Alliance. Somente então agora com transmissão em conjunto com a United Atlantic Alliance, 5 horas e 25 minutos, pelo horário de Brasília. Estamos aí continuando acompanhando a missão de certificação número 1 da Vulcan Centaur, novo veículo da United Atlantic Alliance. Há poucos minutos atrás, né, tivemos aí a confirmação então aí da equalização de sinal com o Peregrine da Astrobotic em conjunto com a NASA, que vai então em direção à Lua. Lembrando que o seu pouso então está previsto para acontecer em meados de fevereiro, e claro que nós vamos acompanhar aqui. Então lembrando que o próximo evento, então, na marca então de 11 minutos, teremos então aí o último ponto de ignição do estágio 2 do Vulcan Centaur. Tivemos mais uma inscrição agora no nosso canal, aqui no YouTube. Estamos aí então, faltando apenas 28 inscritos, né, para chegarmos então à marca de 1000. Então ainda que ainda não se inscreveu no canal, né, se inscreva e também deixe o like aí nas transmissões e nos vídeos, né? Lembrando que logo depois então desta transmissão, né, aí vai ao longo do dia, vou fazer então um compilado aí dos melhores momentos, né, da transmissão para vocês, né, com o voo também na íntegra do Vulcan, e também logo mais na Twitch, né, twitch.tv/UPTV, você vai acompanhar também os momentos, os melhores momentos então do que aconteceu na missão de hoje. Para saber mais sobre a nossa programação, também vocês podem acessar as redes sociais do canal, tanto no X quanto no Instagram, e também no nosso blog, né? Todos os links se encontram aí na descrição da transmissão.
The Vulcan rocket we saw today has a distinctive look. Here is a behind-the-scenes view at
Lembrando
how
que o
this
tempo
was
total de
accomplished.
duração desta missão do Vulcan é de 4 horas e 24 minutos. Temos aí uma vinheta aí de preparação aí foi a preparação então do Vulcan, toda a parte aí da pintura do veículo. E a pintura aí da parte do tanque, né, do veículo. Sigamos acompanhando aí os dados de telemetria do veículo, né? Faltando 8 minutos aí para o terceiro e último ponto de ignição do estágio 2, né, do Vulcan. E agora ele vai seguir então em direção ao Deep Space, né, espaço profundo, onde aí vai ser essa carga em homenagem à Voyager. No caso aí, então, aí tem algumas amostras então de DNAs, né, e outros equipamentos aí também que estão aí a bordo, então, deste módulo de carga. Lembrando que este é o primeiro voo, então, de certificação da Vulcan, né? Lembrando que ele precisa de mais um voo de certificação para assim entrar, então, aí no programa de voos comerciais aí de carga, né?
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T+1 hour 11 minutes. ULA's production campus in Decatur, Alabama recently underwent significant changes to accommodate increased manufacturing capability. Let's take a look at the progress made in
5h30 pelo horário de Brasília. Mais uma vinheta aí, então, da Vulcan. Mostrando então aí a fábrica no Alabama. Então, para quem está chegando agora, nós estamos aí acompanhando a cobertura da missão então da Vulcan, né? Missão de certificação número 1. O lançamento então aconteceu no horário de Brasília, às 4h19, lá no complexo de lançamento número 41, no Cabo Canaveral, na Flórida, nos Estados Unidos, com 2 cargas a bordo, né? A primeira delas foi o módulo de pouso lunar, o Peregrine, né, que teve a liberação aí aos 50 minutos de voo após o lançamento e segue agora em direção à Lua, né? Tivemos também a confirmação da equalização do seu sinal às 5h18. E o pouso então está programado do Peregrine para acontecer aí na marca no tempo em fevereiro, né, meados de fevereiro. O Peregrine então aí é da NASA em conjunto com a Astrobotic. E a segunda carga útil, então aí da Vulcan, em homenagem então aí a Voyager, né? Similar então que aconteceu com a Voyager. Agora segue então em direção ao espaço profundo. E o tempo total de duração desta missão, né, até o momento, né, será de 4h24. Dentro de mais alguns instantes, daqui a 4 minutos, teremos então o terceiro e último ponto de ignição do estágio 2 do Vulcan. Lembrando que aqui no nosso canal vocês acompanham tudo na íntegra das missões, hein? Não se esqueça, aqui é o único lugar que vocês acompanham do lançamento até a entrega da carga. E vocês não perdem nenhum detalhe. Por isso que é fundamental a sua inscrição e seu like na transmissão. Para quem está chegando aí do Space Orbit, do Space Today, né, nós estamos aí continuando aí a transmissão do Vulcan Centaur. 1h15. Estamos ainda aí na transmissão deste momento histórico aí do primeiro voo do Vulcan Centaur, né, que era para ter sido realizado na véspera de Natal, né, 24 de dezembro de 2023, mas foi adiado então e realizado na data de hoje, 8 de janeiro de 24.
Along with meeting numerous milestones towards the first launch of the Vulcan rocket, ULA continued to launch Atlas and Delta rockets this year. Let's take a look back at those liftoffs.
Então tá mostrando aí os lançamentos que foram em 2023. a United Atlantic Alliance, né? Nós acompanhamos todos aqui, né? Inclusive o início do projeto aí do Kuiper, da Amazon de internet, o último lançamento do Delta 4 Rigby, né? Fora outros. Uma hora e 17 minutos pelo horário, pelo tempo de missão, pelo horário de Brasília, 5 horas e 36 minutos. No ano passado, em 2023, tivemos 3 lançamentos da United Atlantic Alliance e nós vimos todos os 3. Este é o primeiro lançamento, então, da United Atlantic Alliance em 2024. Estamos aí no aguardo, então, do terceiro ponto de ignição do estágio 2.
Let's listen in as we approach the third and final engine burn.
LO2 pre-start. PU to start position. Coming up on mess 3, this will be a 20-second burn. Ignition, full thrust.
Ignição.
Both engines are up and running.
Ignição, então, aí do terceiro ponto de ignição do segundo estágio do Vulcan.
Cutoff.
E terceiro ponto de desligamento do Vulcan.
With completion of this Earth escape burn, this concludes the commentary for the flight of EC-1.
Concluída então aí todos os 3 pontos de ignição do estágio 2.
This is Vulcan Mission Control at T+1 hour 19 minutes. We just heard flight commentator Rob Gannon confirm the successful final burn of ULA's Centaur upper stage, carrying the Celestis Memorial Spaceflight payload to deep space. We'll now conclude our live coverage. For more information on the Vulcan rocket, visit ulalaunch.com. I'm Amanda Sterling, and thank you for joining me on this historic day. Before we sign off, let's take another look at the inaugural Vulcan rocket, lifting off the pad for the first time.
Então aí estamos encerrando aí a nossa transmissão aí com a missão então aí concluída da United Atlantic Alliance com o primeiro voo de certificação do Vulcan Centaur. Teve então aí lançamento e todas as missão aí concluída até o momento com sucesso, né? Todos os 3 pontos de ignição do estágio 2 realizados, né? E estamos aí encerrando esta transmissão também. Quero agradecer as inscrições, os likes, né? Donates e a sua audiência, né? Que é fundamental aqui para o nosso canal. Muito obrigado a todos e por hora é só, pessoal. Desejo a todos um ótimo dia.